is early July, and it's at this time of the year that lavender starts to bloom in this part of the country. Also in Toronto, where I grew up. I got a wonderful book for one of my birthdays when I was a teenager from my friend Julie. It's called The Forgotten Arts and Crafts. I still have it. It is one of my favorite books. In that book, all of these old forgotten trades and crafts are covered with beautiful photographs from the 19th century and early 20th century. And in the laundry section, there was a little write-up on something called lavender faggots, which were bundles of lavender that were used after the ironing was done. These bundles were put in between the linens and the sheets to keep them smelling fresh, to keep moths out of them. Well, I saw this little thing, and the instructions on how to make it were in the book, and we happened to have lavender growing in the garden. So I cut some lavender, made one, and I was hooked. And I've been making them ever since. To make, let's just get one thing out of the way, faggot. A faggot is a bundle of sticks. It's a very old term for a bundle of sticks. And the derogatory term, which unfortunately was used on me occasionally when I was growing up, was in reference to burning homosexuals at the stake. It's awful. It's terrible. The whole thing is terrible. And very often when I'm riding my bike on Christopher Street and passing the Stonewall Inn, I think of all of the very brave people in the world, really, who stood up for who they were and how they wanted to live. And it's because of them that I can be who I am in New York City and ride around and enjoy life today as myself being who I am. I'm very, very, very grateful to those people. So I'm taking back this word, and I'm taking it back to something that is beautiful and wonderful that I actually love using and making. The wonderful part of making this is that it involves just a few things, something from the garden and then some ribbon. And they're very easy to make. What you need is lavender that is just about to open up and flower. So if the flowers have opened up already, and sometimes they open up and they start to turn brown, then really it's not ideal to make one of these with lavender that has already bloomed. What you want is lavender that is, the buds are on there, and you have to kind of look very carefully. So the buds are still closed. Some of the blooms might be open, but the buds are coming out and are about to open. And that creates, when you make one of these, all the lavender is encased in kind of a net, in a basket woven shell. But inside that basket, the flower buds aren't going to just fall apart and wither away. So that is an important part of this. You can make them with any lavender. Just try it out. If your lavender is a little too old, cut it, make it, practice, and then next year, cut it early. So this doesn't have to be fussy, but I do want to share the proper way of doing this. Now, there are also many different varieties of lavender. The ideal lavender for making one of these lavender faggots is French lavender that has a long flower head and that has a very long stem. So in the garden here at Eve's Place, we have 4 or 5 different varieties of lavender, and I have picked a few to show you the difference. The English lavender, Munstead lavender, there are Hidcote lavender. The English varieties of lavender are generally quite short in comparison to the French variety. Look at that. So This is the English lavender that you can use for making these. The stems are also much finer. They're thinner, flimsier. It works. But making one of these out of the French lavender, where, look, the stem is like twice the length, if not 3 times the length. The flower head is long, and the stems are thick and woody. This, if you use this lavender, this French lavender, my favorite of the French lavender is Provence lavender. If you use this type of lavender, when the lavender faggot dries and becomes hard, it is like a permanent thing that is so beautiful. I think I have one here. Do I have one in the drawer? Let's see. I do. This is an old one. It's very old. It's like 4 years old, maybe. This is what it looks like. So, this was made of Provence lavender, and it's just like a substantial thing. When I started making these, I actually went out and found a bunch of Provence lavender plants. I was living with my mom at the time, my mom and my sisters, and we dug a trench and planted a hedge of this Provence lavender. And leaving that house, one of the saddest things of leaving that house was leaving that lavender hedge that just thrived. Every year the lavender got bushier and fuller, the flowers got longer, and I would just cut the lavender at this time of year and make these and give them to friends and relatives. It was sad saying goodbye to that beautiful lavender hedge. Anyways, we move on. So, you need, I always forget if it's an even number of stems or if it's an odd number of stems. Anyways, at a certain point, I will realize what it is and I will tell you. You need about, I'd say 15 stems of lavender. And what I actually do is when I cut the lavender, I categorize it into different lengths. Like I can see that this is a lot longer than this. So I'm not going to mix these together. I'm just going to sort of group the stems of lavender into similar lengths. That's the first thing that I'm going to do. And create 3. Long, medium, shorter. And I developed this technique from just doing this over the years. And then what I'll end up with are different size and length bundles. Also, at this point, when you're doing this, take the leaves off. This is actually a good time to remove all the leaves from the stems. You don't want those leaves on there. So, as you're sorting, you can just pull these leaves off because the stems need to be bare in order for weaving them. There. Almost done. Done. Okay, so I have grouped all my lavender into bunches that are more or less the same size, the same length of stem. And now we're ready to actually weave. You need an odd number of stems. So you can do 15, 13, 17. In this bunch, I have 21 stems. That's a nice substantial number of stems. You could do more. You could do 31, 41, 39. So what the next step is to gather, you're going to gather all of the lavender together with the base of the flower heads in the same place. So I'm picking up the stem by the flower heads and I am grouping them together so that the bases are all lined up. If you have little bits like this down the stem where there are a little bit of flowers, just take those off. And what will end up happening is the flower heads will project and they will be different lengths. Some will be short, some will be long. If you can, try to arrange the longer ones in the middle of your bunch. Okay. Smells heavenly. Okay. It is hot. I jumped in the pool, but I might have to jump in again. Oh, there's a breeze. You know, it's funny. It's like I say something, I ask, and then there's an answer. There. Excellent. Excellent, Smithers. Okay. All my flower heads have been gathered at the same place. I'm going to very gently put the group down on the table. And now I'm going to cut a length of ribbon. I am using 100% silk ribbon because it breathes. You can use any ribbon. I've even used twine before. You can use twine or string. The finest lavender faggots are made with very fine, beautiful ribbon that's purple. I'm speaking from experience. The finest ones that I've made. And this very thin silk it's like 1/4 of an inch. It's 4 millimeters exactly. It says on here, 4 millimeters wide. Comes from Japan, from a company called Mokuba. And this is great stuff. So I'm going to cut quite a long piece because this is what we're going to use to weave our basket. So I'm going to cut a piece like that, about 1 yard long. And now I'm going to tie the stems together right at the base of those flower heads. So I'm putting my ribbon down underneath the flower heads and I'm going to tie with a very short tail on one side and the remaining length of ribbon on the other side. You can sort of gather it all together and then finesse the heads so that the bases are all together. Okay, and you want to tie this fairly tightly. You have to do all of this while the lavender is still freshly cut. Once the lavender starts to dry, the stems will start to harden and they'll become brittle, and if you're trying to bend them or tie them together tightly, they'll crack and they'll break. So really, ideally, you cut the lavender and then within two or 3 hours, you make these. Don't make the mistake that I did early on. Go crazy and cut all the lavender at once thinking you're going to make a bunch of these and then leave it for days, because if you come back tomorrow, it's too late. So cut like the stems that you're going to weave immediately, and then when you're finished one, go and cut more. That's my advice. Now, once you've tied the ribbon onto the stems, this is what it'll look like. Short piece, long piece. Okay? Next, we invert this whole bundle and we bend down the stems over the flower heads. And this is why it's really important that these stems are green and fresh, because they need to be flexible. Really, I've done this when I just waited too long, cut the lavender, tried to do it the next day, and as I was trying to do this step, the stems just cracked at the place where they bent, and then they broke and they just fell off. Nicht gut. Du musst das nicht machen. Okay. As you're bending the stems down, try to bend them down in a sequence so that one stem is beside the other stem. And you can kind of find that stem in the bunch. Like if you pull randomly, you might pull a stem that's over there and pull it across all the other stems to pull it over here. But if you really look, if you look carefully, you can find the one that's sort of adjacent to the one that you just pulled down, and then you bend that one down. Here's one that was missing, so now I'm putting it over here. And if you do it this way, the whole thing, the top of this thing, will be much neater in the end if you pay attention to this step. The crown of the bundle will look very professional. Okay, I have to lower this. Let's see. There. One of my stems looks like it might break. So I'm going to try to be very careful with it. There. Okay, so once they're all bent, we have the beginnings of what's going to turn into this. See that? We have a cage around the flower heads. Now, I extract, no, not the short part. You want to I want to take this long part out. I want to make it free. Find the place where it comes out kind of naturally. Spot. Okay, there. And then the short end, I'm going to hide inside. I'm just going to sort of tuck it in among the flower heads and hide it. Now the weaving begins. So 21 stems will enable you to go over, under, and to come around full circle. And then for that process to repeat, you'll be going under, over the next set of stems. And that will create an even basket weave. So what I'm going to do, this is kind of tricky. Like the first round is the trickiest. I'm going to go over this first stem, put the second stem down, and go under the second stem, over the third stem, under the second stem, under the fourth stem, over the fifth. So alternating, going over, under, you know what I mean, Heidi? That's what your grandfather did when he came back from the war, you know. Just kept going over and under, you know. Okay. Over, under. It is finicky. This early part, it does get easier as you move down. Over, under, And what the ribbon's doing is that it's holding, it's going to start holding, along with the stems, the flower heads inside. Creates like a mesh that encases the flower heads. This is a very nice thing to do with more than one person, even like a small group of people, because you can sit around and everybody will be focused on their task, and then once they get the hang of it, because it is pretty simple once you pass those first 2 rows, which are really annoying. But now I'm at a much wider point with the flowers underneath, and it becomes a lot easier and less frustrating. And when that happens, you can kind of relax. And then it becomes, if there's more than one person, a social thing. You talk. So I've done this with my sister. I've done this with my friend Alexandra here in the barn. And when we were doing this together, I think we had something to drink, like tea. And we were sitting and talking and being 2 little Victorian ladies. Oh, I think I made an error. This is what happens when you're not paying attention. Oh, fuck me. Under, over. There we go. Oh, I missed a stem. There. Sometimes like a stem will slip in and you'll miss it. But just what I'm constantly doing is I'm referencing the row above me in terms of the ribbon, and I'm checking to make sure that the current row is alternating. That's my sort of double check. And if it's not alternating, then I go back to a point where it is, and I always find the error. And as I said, sometimes it means a stem has just sort of slipped inside and you can't see it. You have to extract it. These lavender faggots are so nice because they're so solid and they don't disintegrate. Like some of them people have had for 5, 6, 7 years. Makes a really nice gift, especially if you've grown the lavender yourself. Like if it's from your garden and you grow it, you pick it, and you make this, people really will appreciate it. Because you can put it in your sock drawer, your underwear drawer. You can hang it in the closet. Put it on your pillow, you know. Make your pillow smell nice when you go to bed. There. It's looking so nice. It smells divine. Look how nice. So nice, so nice. Maybe the ribbon was a little too long. It's better for the ribbon to be Toulon, like the French city of Toulon. C'est à côté de Marseille, Toulon. It's better for the ribbon to be too long than for it to be too short. Because if it's too short, then you're stuck. You have to like tie it together with another piece of ribbon, and that doesn't look good. But if it's too long, then you can cut it. So I always cut the ribbon that I'm going to work with excessively long. Just in case. That's good. Okay, I've come to the end, because really I can go like this and the lavender's all together, and that's what it looks like. Tie this in a knot to just secure it in place. Hold your stems together. Tie this very tightly to just really secure it. So you can cut this off. This is not sharp. And then I use a different ribbon, some green ribbon. I like to use purple ribbon for the weaving because the flowers are purple, and then green ribbon to tie the stems together. And I found this beautiful green satin ribbon that's the same color as the stems, which works so well. So I cut a length of this. And then I tie it right around the base of the flower heads. And I tie this one into a bow. And then you decide how long you want to make the stick part of this. Because look at how long the stems are. I'll make it about that long. It feels more luxurious when it's long, which is why it's really nice to use this French Provence lavender, because the stems are so long and sturdy. So I just arrange the stems so they're neat. Then I take another piece of ribbon, and this I'm not going to tie into a bow. I'm just going to tie this into a tight knot, double knot. Really pull it tight. Then cut off these ends. And then the fun part, you just cut these there. And that is how to make a lavender faggot. Such a wonderful, wonderful way to use your lavender from your garden and to preserve it. Makes a great gift. But, I don't know, you make one of these, then you make 2, 3, 4, 5, and you'll find places for every single one of them, I guarantee it.